One of the things that certainly members of the bar, the criminal bar, is interested in and has been vigorously addressing is the fact that you have mandatory minimum sentences, which really do create, in many instances, disproportionate sentences being passed on individuals. For instance, there's a matter which I'm involved with presently before the Court of Appeal where an individual, he was convicted and sentenced for 12 years for carnal knowledge. He was 15 years at the time, and the female was 13 years at the time. Here it was that you had two high schoolers. He was in third farm, she was in first farm. And this individual was convicted and was sentenced to 12 years. He's been in prison serving a 12-year sentence since 2011. And so that instances like that, those of us who practice at the criminal bar realize that these mandatory minimum sentences, they do create disproportionate and cruel sentences in certain instances, and that there needs to be a complete revision of the laws and determine the appropriateness of it.
How long overdue would you say this revision is?
Well, I do believe it is because just recollecting, in the past 3 or 4 years, there have been different decisions emanating from the courts, both in Belize and as well as jurisdiction. Take for instance that you have the very famous and very prominent case of Philip Zuniga et al. It was a case that went to the CCJ where the government had enacted amendment to the Supreme Court Adjudication Act and passed a mandatory minimum sentence where excessive fines were to be imposed, and so that was struck down. And you've had as well a case with respect to the Firearms Amendment Act where the mandatory minimum sentence has been as well struck down. As I said, and there are other matters presently before the court which address that. So clearly it is a live matter which continues to impact and affect persons who are charged and who otherwise might be sentenced to a punishment, a term of imprisonment that may not be appropriate. In the instance, for instance, with the Misuse of Drugs Act, where a person who is caught with in excess of, say, 60 grams, that person is liable to be subject to be imprisoned for a term of 3 years. And so these are all things which those of us who practice at the criminal bar believe that should be looked at.